Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavati Tamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We shall chant Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verses 1 to 5.
श्रीभगवानुवाच ऊर्ध्वमूलमधःशाखम् अश्वत्थं प्राहुरव्ययम् छन्दांसि यस्य पर्णानि यस्तं वेद स वेदवित् अधश्चोर्ध्वं प्रसृतास्तस्य शाखाः गुणप्रवृद्धा विषयप्रवालाः अधश्च मूलान्यनुसन्ततानि कर्मानुबन्धीनि मनुष्यलोके न रूपमस्येह ततोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चादिर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यम् यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्तिः प्रसृता पुराणी निर्मानमोहाजितसङ्गदोषाः अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृद्धकामाः द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसंज्ञैः गच्छन्त्यमूढा पदमव्ययं तत्.
After a long gap, we are now meeting again for this Gita class. We had concluded with the 14th chapter of the Gita, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. The yoga of three gunas. So, understanding the gunas, one can relate better in this world. The three gunas are Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. The highest, Sattvic, mediocre, and the lowest, Tamasic. How these gunas bind, predominating one over the other two, they bind individuals to respective actions. What happens to a person when predominating with a particular guna and then giving up this body? That was discussed. And how to rise above the gunas. What are the marks of a person who's risen above the gunas? How you can use karma, bhakti, jnana and go beyond the gunas. All that was discussed in detail in the previous chapter. It's a very, very important and practical chapter, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Especially in dealing with our relationships, it helps a lot by understanding what is the guna that is predominating in me. Firstly, what are the natures of these gunas? And am I sattvic or rajasic or tamasic? What kind of people, environment am I dealing with? Sattvic, rajasic or tamasic? All this understanding will help me in relating with them better. So that was discussed in the chapter 14. Now 15th chapter is again a very, very important chapter called as Purushottama Yoga. Now, this 15th chapter has only 20 shlokas. It's one of the small chapters. 12 chapters also 20 shlokas. This again has 20 shlokas. Now, with this actually, the serious content in the Bhagavad Gita is with this chapter. Yes, the serious content. That doesn't mean 16th chapter, 17th chapter, 18th chapter are not serious. What I'm trying to convey is, in the 16th chapter and 17th chapters, a lot of values are discussed. 16th chapter is called as Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. Yoga of distinction between the divine and divine qualities. So, understanding that we should rise above the demoniac qualities and develop divine qualities. Like Jesus Christ says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So, to be able to realize the self within, we need to develop good qualities. Good qualities per se is not going to make us realize the divinity, but the good qualities help us. They are conducive for us to get to the self. And then in the 17th chapter, Shraddhaya Vibhaga, 3 Satvik, Rajasic, Tamasic. What kind of Shraddha we should have, how will it help, all that it discusses. Again, qualities. Then 18th chapter is summary of the entire Gita. Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. The yoga of liberation through renunciation. It summarizes the entire Gita. So in that sense, the serious content of the Gita ends with chapter 15. And chapter 15, though it's a very small chapter, it's a very, very important chapter in the entire Gita. Now in Tamil they say, Kirti Sirisu, Murti Sirisu Kirti Pirisu. Means the form, Murti, is small. But Kirti, the potential is very high. Right? So, this chapter is only 20 shlokas. But it is having the entire philosophy here. The crux of Advaita philosophy is given in this chapter. What is the crux of Advaita philosophy? Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. Brahman is Satyam, real, eternal. Jagat, world, is Mithya. And Jiva, the individual, also nothing but the Brahman. Jivo Brahma eva na paraha. Jivaha Brahma eva na paraha means Jiva is also nothing but Brahman, nothing else. Right? So Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jivo Brahma eva na paraha. This is the crux of Advaita Vedanta. So, in this chapter, what Sri Krishna is doing is, in these 20 shlokas, he is establishing this. How Brahman is Satyam. And Jiva, Jagat, right? Jagat and Jiva, how they are Mithya. Jiva is also part of Jagat only, right? How they are Mithya. So this Jagat is Mithya, that is discussed. And by understanding this, gaining Viveka about the Jagat being Mithya, Jagat being a superimposition, world being a superimposition, which is Mithya in the sense you cannot call it real, you cannot call it unreal. Because reality is that which exists at all times. If you remember in the second chapter, we are doing third chapter in Sunday class. We had already concluded chapter 2 there. There we had done that shloka number 16 of chapter 2. He says, Nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubayorapi drishtontaha, tvanayos tattva darshibhi. The sat, that which is real, never ceases to be. And asat, which is not real, never exists. Na asat to vidyate bhavaha. Asat doesn't have bhava, doesn't have any existence. And sat never ceases to be. Right? And the truth about these two is known by the seers of the truth. That is what that shloka number 16 of chapter 2 says. So sat means what? It should exist always. Asat means it never exists. Now when you scrutinize this world, we can't call this world asat because it is existing now for us. We are experiencing. How can we deny our own experience? It will be foolish. So we cannot call it asat. Nor can we call it sat. At the moment we are calling it sat. Right? We are thinking this world is real. For us this world is real. But Vedanta says, listen, you cannot call this world real. Why? Because it doesn't exist at all periods of time. For example, when you go to sleep and you slip into dream state, this experience, what you are going through now, doesn't exist there. You may be an industrialist who has given employment to so many people in this waking world. And you may be dreaming that you are unemployed, suffering from poverty. Right? So, for the dreamer, this waking world doesn't exist. And then when we go into deep sleep, both the waking world and the dream world doesn't exist. So, it is existing now, we cannot call it unreal. It doesn't exist all periods of time, we cannot call it real. So then can we call it partly real, partly unreal? You cannot call it partly real, partly unreal because reality and unreality cannot coexist. Then what do? We call it mithya, which means what? Dependent reality. Right? Satya means independent reality. Like gold and ornaments. Ornaments depend on the gold for its existence. Right? They, in that form, with that particular name, exist for a while. Right? So it is mithya. But its existence depends on gold. So ornaments are mithya. Independent reality nahi hai. It is dependent existence. Whereas gold in this example, independent existence it has. Without even being made into ornaments, it can exist. Right? Similarly, Vedanta says, this universe in which all of us are there doesn't have independent existence. It has its dependence. It depends on Brahman for its existence. It is a superimposition upon Brahman. So you cannot call it real. You cannot call it unreal. It is mithya. Right. So when you understand that it exists temporarily, for the waker, the waking world is real. Just like how for the dreamer, the dream world is real. Right? We understand that it is mithya. So we have to take it with a pinch of salt. Not give undue importance as we are giving today. So, by understanding the nature of this world, we develop what is called as detachment. The understanding is called viveka. Right? Understanding of this world should lead us to what is called as detachment. What is that? Not giving undue importance. Giving only that much importance that is due for it. Okay. Then we also go deep and understand that to this there is a foundation, adhishtanam, that is called Brahman. That Brahman is Satyam. Right? So then we shift our attention towards that Brahman, identify with it, and that Brahman is what is manifested as Atma in us. Not manifested, that Brahman is what is referred to as Atma in us. You can't call it manifested. Right? So then, like shifting our attention towards the Brahman, we become Brahman. Right? So, what is the primary thing that this chapter is trying to teach us is the nature of this world. Right? How, what do you call, temporary, passing, fleeting it is, and how it is dependent on that reality, and how without understanding this, we are getting lost. So Brahma Satyam, the form is Satyam. Jagat Mithya. And this Jiva also is nothing but Brahman. Jivo Brahma Eva Na Paraha. So it's actually giving samsara varnanam. Samsara means this phenomenal world, our experiences, this cycle of birth and death, right? Constantly being born, constantly dying. This is what is called as samsara. And he is giving the samsara varnanam. And with that understanding, why we are studying all this is to rise above the attachment, which is causing all the suffering. And the moment we understand whether we really identify with Brahman and become Brahman or not, the very understanding and developing a little bit of detachment itself makes our life far superior in quality. Like Swamiji always says, even before the sun fully rises, right, at around 5:30, 5:15 in the morning, the sun has just come up. You can switch off all the lights. Even the street lights are switched off. People can easily walk around. So even that little understanding and constant dwelling upon this understanding will finally lead us to the ultimate realization. But as we begin to understand and appreciate this, life becomes much more relaxed, right? And much more dynamic, yet relaxed. So, in this chapter, what Sri Krishna is doing is following the fundamental principle of education, which is to move from the known to the unknown. Instead of simply talking about the unknown, slowly, he is taking us from our level towards the ultimate. That's the best way to teach. So first he deals with this world which is available for our senses. Right? Indriya Gochara means the senses can contact, experience. That is what is our level. No? Other things are all too much. Can keep talking, but then it's like bouncers. We simply hear, but it takes us nowhere. It takes us nowhere. Right? So therefore, first thing what it does is, he says, listen, you are seeing this world, you're experiencing all this perceptions, actions, emotions, thoughts. right? Perceptions, actions, emotions, thoughts. All this is your world, right? He says, analyze it, right? What is it? It is perishable. It is perishable. Now, though it is perishable, it is constantly perishing and constantly reappearing, right? Coming into existence. And in this constant perishing and recurrence, it seems to be existing continuously, right? So, there is, if you talk about Satya as existence, it's what we remember I said, no? Satya is what? That which always exists. That existence is what is called as Satya. Now, the beauty of this world is, it is seemingly existing, though it is constantly dying and constantly being born. Right? Death, birth, death, birth, death, birth. In this constant death and birth, something seems to be sustained. Like morning dies, noon born. Noon dies, evening born. Evening dies, night born. In this, the day seems to be existing. So this concept of existence is there here, but it's a very interesting concept of existence. It's not existing always the same. It's going on changing, yet existing. So, the fact that it seems to be existing, we can call it as reality from one level. Okay. So, first, therefore, he calls this Brahman as this universe, which is Shara. You go deeply, where is this existence being borrowed by this world? From Brahman. Right? So from Brahman, the concept of existence is borrowed by this universe. So therefore, he first says this Brahman, this Shara. Shara means perishable. K-S-H-A-R-A. Kshara. Right? This Kshara, perishable world, is also Brahman. Right? But then, having said that, we may take everything perishable to be God. So he goes further and explains, no. In this perishable, there is an imperishable substratum. Right? That imperishable substratum is Brahman. That is called Akshara. So from the known is taking us to the next unknown, Akshara. Now, Akshara, when you say, which is the substratum of Kshara, so you seem to intellectually conceive this concept. Right? You seem to intellectually conceive this concept called Akshara. But Brahman, being infinite, Paripurna, complete, whole, W-H-O-L-E, is something that cannot be conceived. It is that which makes you conceive, not what can be conceived. Okay. So, but the concept of Akshara, we are able to conceive. Na? We are understanding. There is Kshara, the substratum is Akshara. So, therefore, Vedanta says, no. That is also not Brahman. You can't restrict Brahman there. It is even beyond. It is Uttama Purusha. Which means what? It is a being that is far supreme to both Kshara and Akshara. So you can call Kshara as known world, Akshara as the unknown stratum, which through reflection we can kind of conceive. Then when we go a little deep, we understand that the concept of God cannot be limited to Kshara and Akshara. It is even beyond. Right? So you call it as supreme being, Uttama Purusha, which when you put it other way becomes Purushottama. That is why this chapter is called as Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of supreme being. So slowly from the known to the unknown to the supreme being, which is unknowable. Suddenly we want to give a new name, new word, unknowable. Why unknowable? Unknowable in the sense you cannot know the infinite Brahman with your limited finite intellect. You can only become Brahman. So when slowly you reflect upon these concepts, you keep on expanding your thoughts, you rise above the limitations, and then you come to a stage where you appreciate that Brahman is beyond thoughts. And having put in all the efforts and gone to that stage, there you go into complete surrender after all the efforts. Right? Then when the ego, which is thinned down through your sadhana, finally dissolves, what remains is Brahman. That's the idea. So you don't know Brahman, you become one with Brahman. Right? So from the known to the unknown to unknowable. He brilliantly, beautifully takes us slowly. Right? So this chapter, which has these 20 shlokas, are divided into 4 topics by Swamiji through his research to make us understand the thought flow, to have a grip over the subject. Especially if you see, since we are meeting after maybe 1.5 months or I don't know, right? 6 weeks, I think. And I'm 100% sure you would have not touched the book. Right? 100% sure. Confident. Right? So, I thought, let me give a summary of chapter 14 and the synopsis of 15. That's why we made the summary and shared it in the group. I don't know how many of you read that also. If you haven't read, please go and read it. But the thing is that continuity has to be. We have to get the whole picture of the Gita. Sri Krishna was not carrying any book with him to the battlefield. In case Arjuna asks something, let me answer. Nothing like that. Right? He is the personification of knowledge. He is a mobile library. Right? Library means wisdom. So because he is gone, he is liberated. So we also, by getting the thought flow, can achieve something much deeper. But we don't put in that effort. We don't study, we don't reflect. So I thought, let me spoon feed. Right? So I myself gave the summary. See, in Tamil Nadu, where I come from, those days only when radio was there, television and all came much later. There was this program called Indru Oru Thagaval. Indru Oru Thagaval means one information, daily information. One information a day. That's what it means. Right? So, very interesting it used to be. Very nice gentleman by name, Tenkachiko Swaminathan, used to, be the host. He will give very interesting information with a story or something like that. Right? I used to love it. I used to listen to it regularly. One day when he was interviewed, he said, listen, I was in All India Radio working in some other department. And suddenly they came up with this idea that we should have this program, Indru Oru Thagaval. And they said, you host it. I said, Are Baba, listen. And there is no such thing like a limit, time frame. Is it going to be for 1 year? Is it going to be for 2 years? They said, listen, let's start. Depends on how well it goes on, we'll continue. So he said, I had no idea. I was so, shocked when they said, you are going to do it. But then I said, okay, I took it up as a challenge. I said, okay, let me do it. Then I started reading a lot of books, went to libraries, and then I started doing this program. And that program became such a big hit. It went on and on for many years. Thereafter, many schools and colleges used to invite him to deliver talks. And he had a lot of humor, the way he conveyed, So everyone liked his presentation. But he had put in a lot of effort. Now, that gentleman, when he was interviewed, he was asked, did you get any compliments from people that you changed their lives, etc.? He said, I can't think of many compliments, but that doesn't matter. But it definitely benefited one person, that is me. Because I was told to do that program, host that program, then I went to the library, I started studying, and then I said, how, if I were the person who's receiving it, how would I like it to be presented? Right? And I will have all kinds of audience. So I put myself from the audience point of view, then I started thinking how I can convey it. That's where the success is. Identification. So he said it benefited me. Whether it benefited others or not, I don't know, but it benefited me. Seem exactly the same reason for which some of us who studied in the ashram under Swamiji decided we'll do this full time, conducting classes. Not because we know something, but at least this will make us study, reflect. Whether the students will do the summary or not, let's do it. You understand? In that sense. So every time you keep doing it, it's a, what do you call, you refresh it again. You go through it once again. You go deeper. You understand. You don't know what all things connected. What all things get connected with it. And suddenly, one new example comes because you're constantly reflecting. So, therefore, these topics are very, very important. Okay, 4 topics. Chalo, theek. I know. Every chapter Swamiji has divided into few topics. Yahan par only 20 shlokas, so he divided it to 4. Not like that. After so much of research, they give these topics. We should spend some time reflect. The first 6 shlokas is called Brahman is macrocosm, Jagat. This Jagat is Brahman. Or this Brahman alone has manifested itself as this Jagat. That is discussed in the first 6 shlokas. Then the second topic from 7 to 11, 5 shlokas. The topic is Brahman is microcosm. The Brahman which has become the macrocosm, manifested as macrocosm, is what is come down as the microcosm, the individual. Both this put together, macrocosm and microcosm, Jagat and Jiva put together is Kshara, perishable. Then Brahman is the essence in both. Akshara, imperishable. That is the topic from verse 12 to 15. From verse number 12 to 15, he introduces the concept called Akshara, beyond Kshara. Right? And he says, Brahman is the essence in both. Both means Kshara, which is macrocosm and microcosm. The essence in Jagat and Jiva is what? Brahman. So first, the nature of the individual is discussed in the Gita. Then the nature of the world. First 6 chapters, nature of the Jiva, individual. Middle 6 chapters, nature of the world. Then in this last 6 chapters, especially in this chapter, he talks about the essence being the same in both. Right? So this is what is the explanation for Tattvam Asi. That is the Upanishadic Vakya. Right? So, Tattvam Asi, that thou art, that you are. Right? So, you is discussed in the first 6 chapters. Tat, that is discussed in the middle 6 chapters till 12. Then from 13 till 18, especially in this chapter, he is now deducting the what? Common denominator in both the Jagat and Jiva. What is the common denominator in Jagat and Jiva? Brahman. Right? So therefore he is saying that is the essence in both macrocosm and microcosm, Akshara, imperishable. 12 to 15. Then last topic, 16 to 20. Brahman is Uttama Purusha, supreme being beyond Kshara and Akshara. Verse 16 to 20. Brahman is Uttama Purusha, supreme being beyond Kshara and Akshara. I explained that already in the introduction. The truth should not be limited to Kshara or Akshara. It is even beyond, because these are concepts that can be conceived by the intellect. But self, truth, reality, Brahman is beyond these two. So this is how this chapter is going. So once you understand this, now theoretically you understood, but now you have to realize the self. Move from the known to the unknown to the unknowable. Right? For that, you need to put in effort and gain qualities. That is what is discussed in 16 and 17. Then only you can attain moksha through mental detachment. And that is what is talked about in this chapter, especially in the beginning. What he does is, the entire samsara, the world, or experiences, he compares it to a huge tree called Ashwatha, people tree. Right? And then he explains the samsara. Right? By comparing, he explains. See, how do we communicate Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upama, and Agam? The tradition. First is perception, then Anumana, inference. Pratyaksha is perception. Through perception, you gain knowledge. Then Anumana, inference. Then comparison. You gain knowledge. Then go into the traditional ways. So, he is now using this comparison method. Right? This, in fact, example, Ashwatha tree example, is there in the Upanishad, Kathopanishad. It is there in Mahabharata. So it's a very famous example. In fact, if you see, where was this knowledge of Vedanta given? Not like this in a nice AC room, with all the comforts. It was given in the jungle, forest. Right? That's where they left the world in search of the truth. In search of the truth means not because the truth is in jungle or forest. They wanted a quiet place to do research. So there, the teacher and the taught, they're sitting and discussing. It is Upanishads. Right? So, lot of examples they'll give about tree, because they're sitting in jungle only. So trees are there. So, from what you see, from simple things you explain, it becomes easy, right? So what you have to do is, in today's context, whatever is there, using that, we have to explain this knowledge. That's all. Same thing. If the great masters were there now, they would have given different examples, right? It's not because they are want of examples, right? They have understood the subjects. They can give as many examples as you want. So they give this tree example, which is very popular.
Lord Krishna must have thought that this is a difficult concept to grasp, because essentially we take the same concept in every chapter and we add a nuance to it and then we cover it, and so that it deepens our understanding. Assuming that he thought that Arjuna is not going to get it in one go, So he also knew it was a pretty complex concept to grasp, despite its simplicity, that we tackle it in so many different ways, and yet we don't always seem to capture the essence of it for ourselves.
Yes. See, what Surabhi is asking here in the class is that these concepts are being discussed in different ways from the very beginning of the Gita, and slowly he seems to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and we also seem to travel along with Sri Krishna and appreciate maybe, but it's so flimsy, yet we haven't grasped it. Seems like we have grasped it, but we have not grasped it. Isn't that what you're asking? Why is it? What should we do? Yeah. Basically, that's your question.
Yeah, essentially, he's teaching us the same thing, and then he'll be like, okay, now look at it from this slide, look at it. Almost knowing that the person who's receiving it is not going to be able to get it in one go. So he's doing his best to give it to Arjuna.
Yes. See, the thing is, when you climb a particular mountain and reach the peak of that mountain, then you see that there is another peak to be climbed. Then there is a lot more peaks to be climbed. You don't know from there. You think only one or two more is there. If you climb those two, then you see there are a lot more peaks, right? So till you reach the ultimate Everest. So like that, slowly they take you from the known to the unknown to the unknown, like I said. So that's what Sri Krishna also does. Now what is happening is, the Guru is doing sadhana, the effort, and comes and explains it to the student, right? And the student is also in the presence of the Guru, inspired. Relatively, the stand of the student in that atmosphere is slightly escalated, and the student starts appreciating the concepts. But once the Guru is gone, you don't retain that sadhana. You don't fan the spark. You understand? The spark has been introduced. Now you got to fan and make it a conflagration. Now, when you don't do that through sadhana, then what happens is, slowly the whole thing goes. That's why again another week, one more class, right? So what they are trying to tell is, you go back, you put in your efforts, then you will be able to sustain. Right? Now, in the 11th chapter, which we did before, Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, if I can see your Vishwarupa. And Sri Krishna says, okay. Then Arjuna says, if you think I'm qualified. And Sri Krishna says, I will give you that Jnana Chakshu. With that you see. But it is borrowed Jnana Chakshu. So you can only see it temporarily. But what you saw temporarily, with that you have to put in effort and see it permanently. That's why satsang is good. But the sadhana and seva have to go hand in hand. The karma that you have to do has to be done in the seva bhav. You understand? So, satsang, sadhana, in sadhana, many things are there, right? Shama, Dhamma, daily study, Swadhyaya, all that. And then Seva. You have to act in the world in Seva Bhav, expressing your Swadharma. Right? Now, when you do this over a period of time, slowly, you reach certain peaks in spiritual field. When you reach those those peaks in spiritual field, then to that extent your understanding gets, settled. Otherwise, it will evaporate. This is what is happening. So, if you really want to go deeper and deeper, you have to use all these yes that I mentioned. Satsang, which is our study. Sadhana at all levels, especially Swadhyaya, daily getting up and studying. Then Seva, right? Your actions to be done in the world in the field of Swadharma, the spirit of Seva, Yajna. Then slowly, the inner personality gets more and more purified. As the inner personality gets purified, the knowledge in us starts getting absolutely clarified. This is how we should proceed. But we don't do that. So we miss it. We seem to have got it and again we fail miserably. So therefore he says, you must continue doing the sadhana. Strive until you get there. So is that okay, Surabhi? So obviously he has to slowly take the student. When you are at that level, okay, suddenly introduce that concept. It will be a little strong, na? See, you go to somebody saying, for example, you started a new venture now. Why now? Why not 5-6 years ago? Many reasons. One of the things could be, I'm not saying it was, but could be, if I leave the job, then I have my other things. Will I get another job? Or if my business doesn't take off well, so inside thought about fear, right? So supposing you come and with doubt you come to me or anybody for that matter, say, do you think I should wear this thing, that thing? The fact that you are in doubt, right? Obviously the person, whoever is counseling, will not say quit now. He will not say. Do it as a part-time thing. Start gaining those knowledges. And slowly, there comes a time in your life like it came now. He said, take down. It's not necessary that you become financially independent. Not necessary. Right? Maybe not. In fact, there is no such thing as financial independence. We keep mentioning in the classes. There is only such thing as mental independence. If you are mentally independent, if you have risen above things in life, to that extent you can be financially independent. Otherwise, after resigning with X amount of money you think you have sufficiently saved, suddenly you develop a new desire to go for parties and host parties at home. And, where you will throw away a lot of money. Suddenly it won't be enough, how much ever you saved. So without control over the mind, you cannot call anything as financially independent. So, but even though you are not financially that well established, you have still taken the decision now to quit and start a business. You have no idea how it will take off. What will happen? And after a few years, will it, sustain me, or I'll have to get back to my job? By that time, will I get the job again? Many new things would have come, artificial intelligence and all that. But now those things didn't scare you. Why? Because nothing has changed except your inside has now become much stronger. So now, with that inner confidence, without even going and asking anybody, you took the decision. With that inner confidence, if you went and asked somebody, that time they would also say, okay, now you're ready to quit. The answer is different. The answer depends on the questioner. Questioner's level. Isn't it? Arjuna asked, you are praising knowledge, but you are forcing me to action. Why? Because for you, action is superior. Because you are an extroverted fellow. You suddenly leave everything and then go and sit in the academy. Then you will get agitated. First few weeks and months, it will be very nice. You will say, Arey, you will start missing many things. Then you can, within inverted commas, you can go mad also. So, therefore, stage by stage, with sadhana, we can start seeing little deeper, deeper and deeper. You understand? So we need to put in our effort. And that is what we are saying in the beginning when we chant that invocation. Right? May we both become strong, intellectually strong and spiritually evolved. Teacher and the taught together, they are chanting. And they chant that Om Sahanavatu Sahanobhunaktu Saviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavati. You're chanting, without knowing you're chanting. But when you get into the meaning of it, what is it saying? May we both strive. Not only the teacher strives, student also strives. Then, you will own it up. Then it will become yours. That's the idea. Is that okay? So where did I leave when she asked? So that huge tree is given as an example, which is compared with this manifested world. Right? So through the example of the huge tree, he is talking about the world and the substratum. So teaching us the transient nature of the samsara experiences, and through understanding, we should develop that vairagya, dispassion, detachment. Then, with that dispassion and detachment, we can go deeper, identifying with Brahman, because without dispassion, detachment, it is not possible to go deeper. And detachment is not possible without understanding the frivolous nature of whatever that you are trying to detach from. Right? So, for example, in this class also, now on our class, we have to be relatively detached, free from the preoccupations of mobile phone, this and that. Put it in silent mode or, that mute, what is that called? That aeroplane mode. All that, and then you sit down in the class. With that detachment, you sit down, then put in effort, understand, then you go deep. So that's what he's saying here. That's what he's doing. By understanding, gaining viveka, the nature of the world, you develop detachment with reference to the world, and then you also begin to understand the adhishtanam. It is there always, yet you don't see. Why you are so preoccupied? You're so busy. You don't see. So that busy things have to slow down. And it cannot slow down just by saying slow down. There's a method in the madness. You got to follow that. When you follow that, it slows down. Right? Slows in the sense you relax. You're not in such a, stress and hurrying and worrying. So then you can go deeper. And the adhishtanam, which is always there, can be appreciated. You begin to appreciate subtler things in it. So to be able to appreciate the subtler aspects in life, you've got to question the grosser things that you're involved in today and understand their nature. Then only you will be able to come out of it. That's what we said in the 14th chapter also. By understanding the gunas, you start controlling and managing gunas in you. And to the extent you can control and manage the gunas in you, to that extent you can control and manage the gunas in others. Right? So that is what it is. That's how this chapter proceeds. So we will begin this chapter next week. Let's conclude. Oh. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.